Just when you thought it was a little too quiet in the hockey world, Erik Karlsson rumors. Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman dropped a bit of a Twitter bomb, Friedge bomb, I don't know, we'll work on it. Here it is. There's a sense today that... Wait, Elliot, dude, are we sure about this Avi, man? Anyway. There is a sense today that Erik Karlsson trade talks have picked up in the last few days. Most likely destinations appear to be Western Conference. There is also a belief that Vancouver has stepped in to see if it is a match. That tweet gets better as it goes on. Erik Karlsson? Yeah, I'm hooked. But give me something to... Oh, Western Conference, but that's not enough for each. Vancouver! Hot diggity damn, you went Canadian and everything. A couple tweets from others followed. From John Shannon, quick conversation with Canucks GM Jim Benning, says there is no truth to the Canucks being in the Karlsson trade conversation. Well, that's it. I think we gotta take him at his word. Unless Jim Benning became the first GM to ever lie, which I doubt. Come on, dude, it might not be true, but regardless, Jim Benning has to say that. And finally, Darren Dreger from The Other Place, clinging to remaining holidays. However, sources confirm teams with interest in Erik Karlsson have stepped up of late and talks are moving. Teams were hoping to keep it under the radar. However, the beard, oh, it's a very close-up beard, Elliot Friedman, spoiled the surprise. So from very little comes a lot to unpack. Now, if you're a fan of the Senators, you probably knew this date was coming. Not the day of the Erik Karlsson trade necessarily, but the day that the rumors would resurface. Remember earlier this summer when he was traded and then was very not traded and we got like radio silence for a month? That was probably never gonna last. Reporter Chris Johnson came on the Steve Dangle podcast, that's my podcast, last night, and he was talking about Karlsson. And we sort of talked about it, went back and forth, and there was the feeling that, come on, this is gonna get done sooner rather than later. Unless it doesn't, because NHL. But there was a particularly juicy tidbit that came out of that. As you know, when the Sens were shopping Mike Hoffman, it was heavily rumored that they didn't want to trade him within the division. What happens? The Senators deal him to the Sharks, a team in the West. Keep your problems nice and far away. The Sharks, within an hour or two, flip Hoffman to the Panthers, who are in the Sens division. And arguably get more for him than the Sens did. And what CJ said on the podcast, which I thought, and I think a lot of people thought for a long time, but he confirmed it, Pierre Dorion had no idea that that flip was coming. So I think when it comes to Western Conference teams, the Sharks might be out. Except they can't be out, because no one can be out, because the Sens might have the least leverage of any team in the league. Their struggles with ownership, their struggles with management, they did very poorly last season, they're looking to dump salary, they don't have their own first round pick. If the Sharks call, if anyone calls, the Sens should pick up. I saw people like Greg Wyshynski talking about Vegas being still the most viable option for Erik Karlsson. They're a Western Conference team, they still have a great amount of flexibility. It sounds like Vegas was close to getting Karlsson at the deadline anyway, and it's the summer, and when the summer comes in the hockey world, you have time to think. Think about how you were 3 wins shy of the Stanley Cup. Think of how Erik Karlsson might have helped you get those 3 wins, and how you might have been able to afford that trade had you not given up a bunch of picks for Thomas Tatar. But when it comes to the original Friedman tweet, come for Erik Karlsson, stay for Vancouver. Because you see Erik Karlsson trade talks have picked back up and you're like, ah, yes, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and Vancouver might be one of the teams. I'm sorry, what? It's interesting because both Ottawa and Vancouver are rebuilding Canadian teams with 2 very different workloads. Neither team looks like they're going to be very good this year. But the difference to me is in the Sens rebuild, they have a lot of work to do. While the Canucks also have a lot to do with their rebuild, they've done some really good things so far. They've acquired some decent prospects from other teams. Jonathan Dahlin comes to mind. They got at least a couple certified goaltending prospects. Elias Pettersson looks like the real deal. Brock Besser is the real deal. And while the Sens don't have nothing when it comes to prospects, I know which team's prospect pool I'd rather have. It's Vancouver's, in case that wasn't clear. But that's the thing, though. I think that's the way to do it. Acquiring and developing young prospects isn't the only thing you have to do in a rebuild, but it's a pretty big chunk of it. And the Canucks, while swinging and missing a couple times, have actually done a very good job of that in recent years. I mean, at least decent. Pettersson and Besser are 2 guys you can build around, and then you got some other good prospects too. Imagine 2 or 3 years from now, Thatcher Demko pulls a Connor Hellebuck and works his way into the Vezina conversation. All of a sudden, the Canucks are an entirely different team. So why then would you trade a bunch of your picks and prospects for what is potentially just 1 year of Erik Karlsson? This is the thing. If you're like a really good team, you're in there, you're in contention, you can justify trading a bunch of stuff for 1 year of Erik Karlsson. It sounds like Tampa tried it last year before going out and getting Ryan McDonough, and they would have been totally justified in doing so. Heck, they might have even won the cup. Remember, they took the Capitals to 7 and had 2 chances to finish them off. But if you're the Canucks, the only way that makes any kind of sense for the Vancouver Canucks is is if Erik Karlsson extends his contract. So let's say that's an option. Let's say Karlsson is totally open to that. Heck, with my luck, he's probably going to get traded and sign an extension with the team he's traded to right in the middle of me making this video. So what the heck? I'm bored. What would an Erik Karlsson trade to the Vancouver Canucks look like? Well, geez, where do we even start? It's a bit of a copycat league, so let's look at another recent trade and see if we can build off that. I alluded to it earlier. Let's look at what the Tampa Bay Lightning gave up to the New York Rangers in exchange for Ryan McDonagh and JT Miller. The answer, courtesy of NHLTradeTracker.com, is Vladislav Namestnikov, Libor Hajek, that's how I'm going to pronounce it, Brett Howden, a 2018 first-round pick, and a 2019 conditional second. Now, the condition on that second is if the Lightning win the cup, then that second becomes a first. I don't think the Canucks need to worry about that. All right, you might not know all those names. Vladislav Namestnikov is a 25-year-old player who was playing on the wing of some of the most talented players in the league. He was playing with Stamkos for a bit. Wasn't it Namestnikov, Stamkos, Kucherov? It's not fair. 44 points in 62 games last season with the Lightning. Just 4 points in 19 games after joining the Rangers. Libor Hajek was a second-round pick, 37th overall in 2016. Brett Howden was a first-round pick, 27th overall in 2016, so just a few picks before. The 2018 first-rounder, because Tampa did so well, was 28th overall. It's almost a second-rounder, really. And then the conditional second-rounder is a second-rounder, unless it's a first-rounder. So it'll basically be a third-rounder unless it's basically a second-rounder. Anyway, so I looked at the Vancouver Canucks organization and I tried to figure out, all right, what is the rough equivalent of that? Here's what I came up with. Maybe you got some of your own ideas. In place of Vladislav Namestnikov, I have Sven Baertschi. They're almost the exact same age. Their production is pretty similar, and Namestnikov just re-signed for $4 million per season. Baertschi makes $3.366. Baertschi had 14 goals and just 29 points last season, but that was in just 53 games. In place of Libor Hajek, who was picked 37th overall in 2016, I have someone who was picked 5 picks after him, Jonathan Dahlin. This is from HockeyDB.com. He's just 20 years old. He's barely played in North America. I wouldn't look into that too much, but he's been a beast in Sweden, and again, at just 20. And he was drafted by the Sens and traded to the Canucks in exchange for Alex Burrows. Now, in place of Brett Howden, who was a 2016 first-rounder, 27th overall, I got a little creative. Olli Juolevi, the Canucks 2016 first-rounder, who was 5th overall. 7 goals, 19 points in 38 games in Finland last season. There's a couple things here. 1, you're getting Erik Karlsson, not Ryan McDonagh, so you better boost it up a little bit. 2, Juolevi's fallen out of favor a little bit. So yes, you're giving up a former 5th overall pick, but there's an asterisk involved a little bit. It's risky for Vancouver. You could end up looking stupid. And heck, if the Sens are entertaining offers from the Canucks, they better get Juolevi in the trade. Besides selling your fans on, look, we're rebuilding, you can at least sell them on, look, we got a defenseman too. And some of you might be screaming, that's not the right defenseman! And who knows, you might be right. Now, who to put in place of the 2018 first rounder? Well, there's Quinn Hughes, who the Canucks picked 7th overall, and they should be in no hurry to part themselves from. And like I said earlier, the pick that the Lightning gave the Rangers was a late first. So I have a guy that the Canucks took in the early second in Jet Wu. Once again, right-handed defenseman, who doesn't want those? Then there's the issue of the 2019 pick. I mean, the Canucks might be a lottery team themselves, so I don't think they want to give up a first rounder, although the Sens might try to talk him into it. And I think it's likely the Sens do end up getting at least one first round pick for Erik Karlsson. I just don't know if it's going to be from the Canucks. So for the sake of simplicity, let's just say a second round pick straight up. So I have Sven Baertschi, Jonathan Dahlin, Olli Juolevi, Jet Wu, and a 2019 second rounder going to the Ottawa Senators. That's laughable, go eat garbage, many of you are probably saying right now. And I gotta say I agree with you, but I'm not done. In exchange, the Canucks get Erik Karlsson and also someone who the Sens have been shopping for quite some time now, Bobby Ryan. Can the Canucks even do that? They can, actually. CapFriendly.com has the Vancouver Canucks at just about $9.3 million in salary cap space for this upcoming season. Erik Karlsson is going to make $6.5 million next season, which is sick. Bobby Ryan is going to make $7.25 million next season and for the next 3 seasons after that one. Not as sick. Erik Karlsson and Bobby Ryan combined are $13.75 million against the cap next season, which is more space than the Canucks have. But don't forget, we're giving the Senators Sven Baertschi, who makes $3.366666. If you subtract Sven Baertschi's cap hit from Bobby Ryan and Erik Karlsson's, you get just under $10.4 million. You're still about $1.1 million off. Here's how you fit them. While Cap Friendly projects that the Canucks will have only about $9.3 million to play with, it also right now has their roster size at 25. 15 forwards, 8 defenders, 2 goalies. Your 23-man roster must be 23. 2 guys go to the minors, minors, problem solved. And also just looking at the Canucks roster, they have Derek Dorsett making $2.65 million against the cap, and he'll probably be LTIR. If the Senators are really stuck on sticking Bobby Ryan to Erik Karlsson in any trade, the Canucks could be a team that could afford to do that. They could afford to do that next year, that is. No problem. After that, it's gonna get a little tight. You might have to let some guys walk and go really young. But isn't that the plan anyway? Look, I'm not necessarily saying this is a great idea on behalf of the Vancouver Canucks. I'm just saying that they could absolutely do it. Now, that's from the Canucks perspective. From the Sens perspective, you're probably going, we better get a lot more than that. You want a Demko, a Pettersson, a Besser. You don't just want a big name, you want a huge name. And I'm not sure any of the guys I suggested in my trade proposal are huge names. There's a couple big names in there, big-ish, but they're not a Besser. And to the fans, I would say, I'm sorry. Because in the scenario I outlined, Bobby Ryan is stuck to Erik Karlsson. And if that's something that the Ottawa Senators organization insists on doing, you're going to take a bit of a hit in your return. So what are the Senators going to do? To me, that's the biggest mystery. Screw it, I say do it. Seriously, you're giving up a lot to get a guy who could potentially change the course of your organization while keeping your best prospects. Yes, very yes, do that every single time. And man, the Canucks have been so bad over the past few years, you want to make sure that the local fan base has a reason to go to games when Seattle shows up. I mean, damn, this might actually work. What do you think? In the comment box down below, you're the Vancouver Canucks, make a trade offer to the Ottawa Senators. Or how about this? You're the Ottawa Senators, make a trade offer to the Vancouver Canucks. When you leave your trade proposal, please say which team you're pretending to be. Silly season. Apparently it never ends. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Brand new Panago Pizza Steve Dangle podcast and a link down below. Also some new merch that you should buy and put in your body. And just trade the guy, man. I'm kind of getting sick of this. Just trade him.